situation that we're in, God is always at work. Not only that, God's purpose isn't limited by our circumstance. You see, the people of Israel, they were exiled. Now, I have never felt what it means to be exiled. I have never felt what it means to be displaced, having nothing. I have never experienced what it means to lose my worth and to lose my identity. But for these people of Israel, when they were exiled, they were broken, they were discouraged, and they lost everything. You see, when we feel helpless and when we feel broken, it's just easier to simply quit and give up on life. And I realize that many times, we let our circumstances determine our responses, and we let it determine how we live. But church, listen up. Did you know that God uses our circumstance to prepare us for the very purpose that He has placed upon us? In short, the very pain, the very circumstances that you experience growing up, God has allowed those things in your life so that He can prepare you for the very purpose that He has prepared for you. Have you experienced rejection in your life? Have you experienced abandonment in your life? Alam niyo ba itong mga bagay na experience natin, God allowed those things so that when you encounter people around you who are feeling and who have experienced the same things, you can actually have compassion towards them. In short, God will use your pain so that you can minister and you can have compassion on the people around you. So understand that God uses our pain so that He can use us for His purposes. So for these people of Israel, being in exile did not stop God from moving in His people. So even this coming election season, for many of us, it's a big deal. But for many of us, it's not a problem at all. Maybe for some of you, you're like, Lord, whoever wins, walang pakialam because I have my own problem at all. But in whatever season, or maybe in this election season, no matter what the outcome is and whoever will be elected, do not ever think God's purpose will not prevail. In fact, listen to this. Your failures in the past will not stop God from loving you and from using you. I have a friend. He shared with us this story that growing up, he just saw how their parents would fight over money. And for the very reason that they were in debt all their lives. Alam mo yung kwento ng kaibigan namin that he would just see their mga gamit nila being, kinukuha na lang sa bahay, and they're like, we have nothing. And so they were broken and they were in debt. Baon na baon sila sa utang. And in this very helpless, in this most difficult situation of their lives, do you know where they turned to? They went to church. So they went to church, not here in Victory Davao. So they went to church, and when they went to church, they started to be discipled. They started to know about God. They started to grow in the Lord. They started to be passionate for the Lord. And they were actually excited to serve the Lord. They met wonderful people in church, but same problem, debt. And they would still fight over money. And the children would still feel, Mama, Papa, ba't kayo nag-away? Nagdahil sa pera. And so money was of great value to them. And then there was this one time that both parents, the mom and the dad, they had an encounter with the Lord about money. And God just told them, you know what, why are you fighting over money? Why are you making money your idol? And God just really sagpaized them and told them, money should not be your identity. You should never get your meaning from money. And they received a prophetic word, and in this prophetic word, God just told them, you may be in debt right now, but the Lord is telling you, one day, you're going to elevate people from their financial miseries. And they were like, Lord, kami? We're going to help people? Kami ngayong may kailangan, Lord eh. Hirap na kami sa pera na. Nag-aaway kami, magulo yung pamilya namin just because of money. And yet you're telling us, Lord, that we're going to be a blessing to people. They did not understand that. But do you know what they did? They continued to walk faithfully in the Lord. They ran the race that God has marked out for them. They ran the race faithfully. Fast forward today. 7 years ago, they were broken, they had money, they were in debt. We're talking about 8 digits debt. And sometimes we're thinking, Lord, is that even possible? But do you know right now, this couple, this family has been a great blessing. Not just to individuals, but even to churches. They would finance, alam mo yung parang in building churches, they would support missionaries, they would support pastors. And when God tells this person, even if they do not know the person, they're just going to approach that person and say, hey, I may not know you, but the Lord told me to bless you. And God has blessed them mightily, that even right now, the reason why they would buy more properties and have more businesses and even establish more resorts for the very purpose of blessing God's people and advancing God's kingdom. Imagine what they went through, the brokenness, being in debt. God used that so that they would also understand what it means for people to have nothing. So understand that the very situations that but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. God's purpose will always prevail. And third application or implication that we can learn from the story of Daniel is this, that God's wisdom surpasses earthly kingdoms. You see, there are so many things in life that we do not know and understand. Gusto natin to be in control. Lord, gusto ko maging in control. Gusto ko, Lord, we can always trust God's plan and trust His wisdom. In short, God's wisdom surpasses human kingdoms. God's wisdom surpasses human timelines. May mga bagay na, alam mo, inisip natin, when we venture into a business or when we start a relationship, Lord, if you're going to bless this relationship, Lord, I know that I will be happy in the future. But understand that God, when God makes a decision in His wisdom, it's not for your happiness, but it's actually for your holiness. Because kung lahat happy-happy lang, ay nako, masisira ang buhay natin. But I thank the Lord because God has placed in His Word that what He desires is for His people to be holy, to be fully satisfied in Him. So God places us in a position where we can actually, yung trajectory natin is towards holiness. For you to be a Christ-like husband, for you to be a Christ-like wife, for you to be a son and daughter who respects and honors your parents. Life is never about our happiness. But in God's wisdom, He allows us to go through some of the most excruciating and one of the most difficult circumstances. And sometimes we question the Lord and know that God is not intimidated by our questions. God doesn't become a lesser God just because you questioned Him. In fact, He welcomes our doubts.